I grew up in Nelson and my first job was in a cafe there doing dishes. From there, I came back to Wellington and got a job with a guy called Al Brown. I think that's when my idea of what I was doing with my life changed quite dramatically. London, I think, was then another step up because you work crazy, like that's just insane. I went to another really good restaurant called Mew, and that was a chef called Tetsuya. I've never seen a chef like him. I remember him boning a chicken out with his hands. Didn't even use a knife. I worked there for almost 3 years. And then we decided to move back to New Zealand to settle down and have kids. 3 years I had back at Logan Brown as sous chef, and it was an amazing time, heaps of experience. I got to learn about Wellington and the restaurant scene in Wellington and suppliers and huge amount of knowledge. And in that time while I was there, we won Restaurant of the Year for cuisine. So that was just like huge. My wife was like, it's time, you need to do your own thing. Ti Kouka opened in November 2010. The whole idea was to give people more than what they expected. We opened and I had this huge dream of being 100% local and organic, and went to the extreme. I bought all the stuff in and we were going along and not having a clue that 6 months in, I'd sit down with the accountant and he's like, okay, you're losing lots of money. You got to change, otherwise that's going to be over. So I then had to cut it all right back. I said, rang up all the suppliers that I've been using and I'm like, sorry guys, I can't do this anymore. So we had to cut it right back to basics and just go with what was cheaper. Since then, we got it back on track financially, and I've just been slowly introducing things. Like with the pork, for example, instead of getting a loin, which is your most expensive cut, you buy the whole beast and use every single part of it. That means you're saving money, there's no wastage, and you're getting the most out of that product. Same with chickens, so I don't buy a chicken breast, I buy whole chickens, and I'll use the chicken legs to make sausages, I'll use the breast for a main, and then I'll have like the wings we can do something with, and then the carcasses for a stock. So you've got a soup or whatever it is. So it's a matter of using what you get wisely. And then I think the other thing with, if you have produce that is very good, it seems you don't need as much. So it's part of my philosophy in Ti Kouka is we don't serve huge portions of meat. We have a good sized portion of meat, but we have a whole dish. So it's not just a piece of meat on a plate, it's a whole dish. You've got a cooked component of vegetables, you've got a raw component. So it's all about using everything together. So you've got maybe something that's a bit more expensive with something that's not so expensive, and putting them all together so you can work it out. I suppose the other thing is using cuts of meat which aren't the primal cuts. So instead of using your fillet steak, I use a lot of brisket, which is a lot cheaper. So it's still quality, and in fact, I mean, I think it tastes better if you know how to make it. If you know what to do with it, it's a beautiful piece of meat. We don't buy pre-prepared stuff and make tomato sauce. You make chutneys, you make jams, and that way you've got control over what it tastes like, but you've also got control over the costs. Both Sarah and I own our own business, so we've had to be very wary of our money to be able to do that. So the two most important things are our kids, obviously, and then food, because we're both in the food industry in different areas. We spend a lot of money on food, but in a way, I suppose that is quite economical as well. We don't go out and buy heaps of packaged foods or lots of takeaways. We do a lot of it ourselves. We go to farmers markets as much as possible because we find you can get better produce at a good price rather than the supermarket. We don't eat lots of takeaways. We'd rather come home and quickly put something together, make a quick pasta, or make our own pizzas at home. We quite often make pizzas here. Do a bit of baking. We try and get as much baking done as possible. Make bread and biscuits. And obviously this kitchen is very small and it's old. We don't even have a dishwasher. You don't need all those little mod cons. You don't need all the bits and pieces to make food. My little thing that I spend quite a lot of money on is books. I love cookbooks. My latest book I bought on fermentation, and so I'm learning how to make ginger beer and beer and mead and sourdough, kimchi and sauerkraut. And that's also just another way of being able to really just to save money in a way, because you can use lots more products if you're fermenting it, because it's going to last longer. So that side of it, it's about knowledge. On the other side of it, there's a lot of food porn. I just like looking at what chefs are creating other places around the world and where food is going in the top places at the moment, because it's going, I think, in a really nice direction, a lot of getting back to the roots and exactly what we're talking about. Finding, the farmers and working with the farmers to produce amazing food, and doing a lot of foraging and going out and getting your own food, which I think is the sort of the future.